Hello.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes.
Just checking whether you can hear me.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. I'm muting myself. Thank you.
Hello. 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 Hello.
Hello. Headphone இல்லையா? I'm very regarding for the either button many are set up
Yes. Yes, to
Hello. 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 Hello.
Students, kindly fill the front rows. Kindly occupy the front rows, please. Blessings of grace and peace be with you today and every day. Good morning. A hearty, hospitable, and warmest welcome to all our participants. We are ready to parade our grandstand of lavishness. Come on, come all. The Research Department of English, Sri S. Ramasamy Naidu Memorial College, Satur, jubilantly standardizes a two-day national hybrid conference on comparing Indian classics with classics in world literature in association with Sahitya Akademi, New Delhi. Prayer is the world's greatest wireless connection. Our department spirits are here to hymn the prayer song. Let's rise up for prayer.
All things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small, all things wise and wonderful, the Lord God made them all. Each little flower that opens, each little bird that sings, He made their glowing colors and made their tiny wings. All things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small, all things wise and wonderful, the Lord God made them all.
Thank you. The appurtenance of welcome is illumination and ceremony. This welcome ceremony will be delivered by Lieutenant Dr. B. Ajanta, convener of this conference. Ma'am, please.
Warm greetings to the esteemed head of the institution, head of the department, guest speakers, participants from the other colleges, our own colleagues, and dear students. It gives me great pleasure and a privilege to welcome you all to this two-day National Hybrid Conference on Comparing Indian Classics with the Classics in World Literature, being organized by our Research Department of English, Sri SRNM College, in association with the Sahitya Akademi, New Delhi. We are really very grateful to Sahitya Akademi for associating with us for the third time now. We have already organized an international conference in 2018 and a national e-conference in 2021. This association always makes us feel privileged in this academic fraternity. To speak about this conference, we are going to discuss the rich and diverse traditions of Indian classics and classics in world literature. Over the next 2 days, we will explore the similarities and the differences between these literary traditions and examine how they have shaped our understanding of the world and ourselves. We all know that Indian classics like the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Ramayana, the Mahabharata have been celebrated for their profound impact on Indian culture and spirituality. They explore the relationship between humans and the divine and offer insight into the complexities of human relationships and moral dilemmas. Over a period of several centuries, these texts are continued to be studied and revered by scholars and practitioners of Hinduism and other spiritual traditions. On the other hand, to say about the classics in world literature, it offers a more diverse range of themes and subject matter, reflecting the cultural and linguistic diversity of regions in which they were produced. These works include Homer's The Iliad and the Odyssey, Virgil's Aeneid, and many more. They explore a wide range of topics including love, war, politics, philosophy, and have had a profound impact on Western literature and culture. It is certain to us that there are differences between Indian classics and the classics in world literature, but still, they share a common thread of enduring relevance and influence. They offer us insights into the human condition and the enduring questions that have preoccupied human beings throughout history. With this brief note on our conference, I will take the role of convener and I'm going to extend my hearty welcome to our dignitaries on the stage. I would like to warmly welcome our principal, Dr. S. Ganeshram, who has been a driving force behind our institution's success and always being an inspiration to the aspirants. Sir, your presence here today underscores your commitment to advancing education, and we are always grateful for your leadership. On behalf of the Research Department of English, I extend a hearty welcome to our principal. Welcome, sir. At this outset, I request all the dignitaries on the stage to honor our principal with a memento. It is my pleasure to extend a warm welcome to our esteemed head of the department, Dr. Sumati, for our conference. Ma'am, your leadership and dedication have been instrumental in shaping our department into the outstanding department as it is today. And we are grateful for all you have done to support us. My hearty welcome, ma'am. I request our principal to honor our head of the department with a memento. I extend a warm welcome to our esteemed senior resource person, Professor Nirmal Silvamani, former founding head of the Department of English Studies and Dean, School of Social Sciences and Humanities, Central University of Tamil Nadu, for this national conference, who has joined with us in virtual mode. Your vast experience and expertise in this field are highly respected, and we are honored to have you here to share your knowledge and wisdom with us. Your virtual presence here will undoubtedly make a significant impact on all the attendees and enrich our understanding of the subject. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And it is an honor to welcome our keynote speaker, Professor Joseph Koyipalli, who is serving as a professor in the Department of Comparative Studies at the University of Kerala. It is indeed a privilege to have him as a resource person to our national conference. Sir's expertise and insights in comparative studies are highly regarded, and we are grateful for his willingness to share his knowledge with us and his presence. Your presence here will undoubtedly make a significant impact on all the participants, sir. Welcome, sir. I request our head of the institution and the head of the department to honor a resource person with a memento. I am delighted to welcome the speaker of the inaugural address, Dr. A. Ramasubbayam, Associate Professor, Research Department of English, MTN College, Madurai. Your presence here today is a testament to your commitment to promoting and advancing the field. We are grateful for the opportunity to learn from you. Welcome you, sir. Again, I request our head of the department and the head of the institution to honor Dr. Ramasubbayam with a memento. We always have a strong belief in peer group learning. I welcome and thank our faculty members at our department for giving their consent to deliver a guest lecture at our conference. It is time to honor our guest speakers from the Research Department of English, stay SRNM College. I request our head of the institution and head of the department to honor our faculty members with a memento. I invite Dr. Sumadhi. Yes, ma'am. Dr. Jayanti. Sorry. I request Dr. Haresh Nirmal to receive the memento. I request Dr. Fatima Fazana. I request Dr. Batmashnimam. I request Dr. Sudha Devi, the moderator of the sessions. I request Dr. Maritai to receive the memento. I request Ms. Abhilasha.
Now this is time for us to honor the convener, Lieutenant Dr. B. Ajanta, whose tireless effort has fabricated the seminar. I request keynote speaker, Dr. Joseph Koyipalli, and our head of the institution, head of the department, inaugural addresser, Dr. Ramasubbayam. It's happy to see honoring the convener on the stage.
So, in this two-day national conference on comparing Indian classics with the classics in world literature, we will have the opportunity to engage with eminent speakers scholars, and practitioners from a variety of disciplines and perspectives, and explore the rich and complex tapestry of Indian classics and classics in world literature. I hope that this conference is going to be a productive and enlightening experience for all of us, and that we will leave a deeper understanding and appreciation of these enduring literary traditions. Once again, I welcome you all to this conference and wish you all a fruitful and enlightening experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your warm welcome address, ma'am. In every battle, there comes a time when both sides consider themselves beaten. Then he who continues the attack and wins. One such crown principal is Dr. S. Ganesh Ram. So please bring out your presidential address.
The most respected keynote speaker of this today's seminar on comparing Indian classics with the classics in world literature, Professor Dr. Joseph Koyilpilli of Central University of Kerala, Professor Nirmal Selvamuni, formerly head of the Department of English of Central University of Tamil Nadu, my brother Dr. Ramasubaya of MTN College, Dr. Sumadi, head of the Department of our college, Dr. Ajanda, convener of this seminar, my colleagues from the Department of English, faculty members from the different colleges affiliated to Mary Kamraj University, and my dear student friends. It gives me pleasure to be here on this happy occasion. And as we are already late by 30 minutes, I do not want to take much of your time. Like you, I am also waiting to hear the speech to be delivered by Professor, keynote speaker, and Dr. Ramasubaya. Whenever Dr. Ajanda organizes a seminar, she used to give importance to three things. One is the theme. She will always select a good theme for the conference. And the second one is she will find a suitable collaborator. This time, Sahitya Akademi. She usually have a collaboration with the Sahitya Akademi. And the third one is good resource persons. When you go through the program schedule, you will understand these three things. And let me first congratulate on behalf of the management and the entire faculty members, students. I congratulate Dr. And I think this is the third program organized by the Department of English in the recent past. The first one by Maritai, which was sponsored by Indian Council of Social Science Research. And the second one was done by Dr. Jayanti. It was sponsored by UGC Autonomous Grant. And this is the third successful program organized by another faculty member, Dr. Ajanda. And you see the three programs organized by three different faculty members of the same department. And this had happened only because of me, I think. When I became the principal of this college, I broke the tradition, one tradition. That is, the tradition in this college was that only HOD was allowed to organize the seminars for a quite long time. From the inception of this institution, only the HODs had the right to organize. If they organize program, it is okay. Whether they organize or not, nobody bothers. So when I became the principal of this college, I was just going through the number of programs organized by each and every department. It was very, very few. So I decided to break the tradition and gave liberty to all the faculty members, whether they are working in self-finance stream or in aided stream. They are given support, they are given right to organize seminars. Now, what had happened after 2015? The total number of seminars, workshops, conferences organized by each and every department, in this college has become very, very plenty. That is why we are able to get A++ in NAC assessment. Otherwise, it is not possible. I think I am very happy to see a professor from Kasaragod. You may be aware of the location of Kasaragod. A very resourceful professor, traveling such a long distance from Kasaragod to Satur is not very easy. It takes much of time to travel. He has to change 2 trains and reach here. What is the purpose? The purpose of organizing a seminar by inviting such a resourceful professor from a place which is very, very near to Mangalore is to just help you to enhance your knowledge. Just to enhance the knowledge of students, he has taken so much pain to travel to Satur. And the organizer has taken so much pain to fix the date and a guest here. So my humble request on this occasion is, please make use of the presence of such a great scholars like our keynote speaker, right? With these few words, I once again thank the organizer and the department for having organized this good seminar on a good theme. And I once again express my sincere thanks to Professor for having accepted our invitation to travel such a long distance to reach this place. I also thank Dr. Ramasubbiya, right? The reason for telling all these things here, why I broke that tradition. I told this, I am telling this just for Dr. Ramasubbiya, because shortly he is going to take over as head of the institution of a very big college situated in Madurai. And I think it will be good if he follows the same in his college after assuming charge as the principal of that college. With these few words, I once again extend a warm welcome to one and all present here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your felicitation address. Under her headship and counsel, her own English department has organized many workshops, FDPs, seminars, and conferences in association with state and central funding organizations like ICSSR, Sahitya Akademi, New Delhi, Ministry of Culture, GOI, and LTI. This is her time for us to listen to Dr. R. Sumati. She's going to felicitate this conference. Dear mom, kindly felicitate this.
Respected dignitaries on the dais, my beloved teachers, participants, paper presenters, and my children. Good morning to all. It's a great honor and privilege to me to stand in front of you on this occasion. At the outset, I welcome and thank the president of this conference, our principal, the enlightening force, Dr. Ganesh Ram, for his constant support and his encouragement. Whenever I met him in his cabin for any academic obligation, he never says no. We feel very comfortable in his presence. Though he is the professor of history, whenever we met him for any ideas, he always give valuable suggestions and encouraged us. And such a versatile personality our principal is. Then the work assigned for me is only coordinating the department as being the head. Coordination cannot be successful without the cooperation of the teachers. I strongly believe my teachers are very highly cooperative. And if they are assigned by task, simply I need not worry about that. It will go ahead without any request or any disorderliness. And I am very proud to be one among them. The Department of English has organized in a short duration of the lifespan of 5 years, has organized 5 international conferences, 7 national level seminars, and 2 national level workshops, and 2 national level FDPs, and 2 international level FDPs, altogether 18 in number. And it is a very short period. And I have to thank our teachers for that. And we received sponsorship twice from ICSSR New Delhi and once from Ministry of Culture, Government of India, and thrice from Sahitya Akademi, the prestigious Sahitya Akademi, New Delhi. Sahitya Akademi, India's National Academy of Letters, is India's premier literary institution. And this academy preserves and promotes literature in 24 languages. It undertakes literary exchange programs with various countries across the world to promote Indian literature. We are highly privileged, and it's a proud moment for us. And at this juncture, I would like to thank and appreciate Lieutenant Dr. Ajenda Parthasarathi for her effort and enthusiasm in getting the sponsorship from Sahitya Akademi. Her professionalism and dedication to the duty has mesmerized me often. I congratulate her in this occasion and very proud of her. And I congratulate all my teachers also and thank all my teachers for involving themselves in carrying out this occasion a successful one. I wish the Department of English will go to great heights within 1 or 2 years. And I thank my lovable children also for that. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mom, for your lovable felicitation address. A good speech is like an inscribe. It has to have a point. We are here going to listen to such a fabulous presentation now from the versatile speaker, Dr. A. Ramasabai, Associate Professor. Sir, excuse me, sir. Not yet over, sir. Kindly be seated.
Already we are 20 minutes late.
Sir, please, sir. It's my pleasure to continue our profile, please. The very high profile doyen, Dr. A. Ramasabai, doesn't stand in need of any introduction because he has played many distinguished roles in his career. Indeed, it's my great pleasure to outline his educational self-efficacy. Dr. Ram is a distinguished teacher with 25 years of teaching experience, played multifaceted role like researcher, editor, author, IQAC, NAC, and Extension Activity Director. He has held many academic and administrative positions like subject expert, member board of studies, membership in academic bodies, research advisor for MPhil and PhD programs in various well-reputed institutions. Legend in literature, Dr. A. Ramasabai is specialized in critical theory, Indian writing in English, African literature, cultural studies, drama, and whatnot. In 2021, Dr. Ram received Eminent Teaching Award for the academic year from Lady Hawk Language and Career Lab from Coimbatore. As a researcher, he has guided many MPhil scholars, produced 4 PhD candidates, at present guiding 2. He is an author for 4 books. He has published more than 30 research papers in national and international academic journals. We are cordially waiting for your skillful oration. You are most welcome to the dais, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Sudha. Maybe it is a hype. Whatever you have read, it is an exaggeration. I thank my beloved and the most respected brother, Dr. Ganesh Ram, the principal, the distinguished principal of this college. I say the distinguished principal because he is being celebrated everywhere, almost all the states in the country. I'd been waiting for a 2 decade from listening to such sweet words from the Vasishta's mouth. He is the first person who declared me on the stage as the head of the institution shortly. Thank you, because it cannot be, it would be true. It cannot be a false statement, because you are going to scrutinize my paper shortly. That's okay. And then, and you are going to be one of the, it is listening from your principal's mouth, and the listening from our secretary's mouth are same. They are both, because both of them are the well-wishers of this of our institution. I'm extremely happy. I'm really blessed that he partly declared that I'm going to head the department, for which I have been waiting for a long time. Good, thank you, sir. And then, and also I thank the research keynote speaker, and I'll take just 10 to 15 minutes to address, because I was a bit reluctant when she invited, because already I've been in fever, because I'm going to face the interview on 18th of April, because after 2 decades, I'm going to appear for an interview. There are 13, 14 people who are going to throw questions. I don't know how I'm going to answer all the questions. In spite of that, I accepted an invitation, because my long-time association with Dr. Ajanda and this institution, I accepted the invitation to give the inaugural address. And then, thank you, sir. The research person all the way came from Central University of Kerala. And it's a pleasure and honor to speak in the presence of eminent professors who worked in different countries and different reputed institutions across the India, across the states in the country. And it is almost like an acid test to speak in front of you, or in the presence of you. And also there is another eminent person who is in the virtual mode, Dr. Nirma Selvamani. It is because of him I put my daughter into Madras Christian College. Earlier he was heading the Department of English in Madras MCC, and then he went to Thiruvarur, and now he's back to his parent institution, I think so. Then coming to this seminar, I think that this morning when I was having dinner, when I was having breakfast, I spoke to my wife, and then I was asking her, since I'm going to speak. My wife never has seen me that seriously I'm preparing for the classes, but the last 2 days I have been preparing like anything, as if I'm preparing for my own classes. And then she asked me, what are you now so seriously are preparing for the last 2 days? And said, I'm going to give a talk on mythology, myth, which is almost a myth. A person like me talking on myth is a myth. And but she said, I learned all these things from not from Ramayana and Mahabharata. See, that simply she gave me an answer. I learned all these mythologies from Varamalar and Sirvarmalar, Anmiga Malar. She said, that's true. Now I was referring to, I was asking her, what is the reason for this Kalugumalai? And she gave me a brief, detailed lecture on the Sthala Varalar of Kalugumalai. And I asked her, Papa, how do you learn all these things? I learned all these things through Anmiga Malar by Dinamalar. I was surprised. Such a way, no, I was preparing, but even in the air-conditioned hall, I'm a bit, so I feel a bit sweating because of the presence of these dignitaries on the stage. But before that, I would like to say something about our principal, distinguished principal. When I think of him, I always remembered the great poet and Nobel laureate, the only Nobel laureate of India, Rabindranath Tagore. And when he was addressing, he was almost like an English professor, though he's a historian. Now I could see that the language and the flow of language, the content, and that's why he's being celebrated. And whenever I see that, whenever I look at him, that I'm remembered of Tagore's words, where there is a mind without fear, see that the head is held high. Okay, this is an address by Rabindranath Tagore to the countrymen. Now, to be self-reliant and self-dignity and self-respect and also confidence. And this self-reliance and self-dignity and dignity and confidence, given by the principal to the stakeholders of the institution, that is amazing, and I really salute to you, sir. That he was telling, and I was telling how he broke the myth. He broke the myth that earlier all the heads of the department used to organize, and then when he assumed the office, and he said each individual. So when I know Dr. Ajanda 10 years back, and now see that Ajanda has she has conquered, or yes, she has surpassed even all the departments, all the elite departments in any institution. Because as Madam, when she was referring, in the last 5 years, 18 seminars sponsored by different agencies, it is unbelievable. That is why the institution has secured 3.74, stating number 1 in the state. And I learned, see what I'm carrying back, what I'm taking back when I go to my institution, that your message that now giving justice and equality to all the fraternity who are working in the department. And definitely I try my best. I walked extra mile, to walk into your shoes when I assume the office. And then another interesting thing that I want to tell you about this seminar, as already the principal pointed out, that I want to say something about the agenda, that a couple of days back, I went to Manomaniyam Sundaranath University, where they organized the ICC sponsored a 3-day seminar. ICC sponsored 3-day seminar, where you see that a lot of distinguished resource persons across the country, they came. And one of the senior professors working in Mumbai University, and this professor asked me, and who is this agenda? I'm not exaggerating. Who is this agenda? How is it possible, as principal said, how is it possible that consecutively 3 years getting sponsors from Sahitya Akademi? That's true. And he was very close to me, and he is asking now, and how is it possible? Even professor was a professor, and then he is the Dean of Humanities and Foreign Languages in MS University. What is your friend doing there? ஏதாவது ஒரு அந்த கனெக்ஷன் எனக்கும் சொல்லியா நானும் போய் ஸ்பான்சர் வாங்கிக்கிறேன். This is the statement given by one of the senior professors from MS University. So, but she never let the cat out of the bag, though I am very close to her. Okay, and the whole, as the principal said, the whole librarians are turning towards the English department of Satur College. It has overtaken conquered all the English departments of the elite institution, because you see that they have been organizing seminars, conferences, symposiums, not from the management funds, getting funds from all the reputed agencies in the country. It is something not possible. Even Even if it is possible that, teachers are not ready to walk extra miles to get funds from the agencies. Papam, enna avasaram? This is what the mood of the people. So I'm extremely happy the whole literary area now is looking at the English department, looking at the English department of Satur College. One more thing is, I prepared whatever I wanted to say about the agenda, and it is said by the principal, sir. And another interesting thing that I wanted to see here is the resource persons. I remember that when first time when she organized a conference, he came to me. But nowadays she doesn't respect me at all. No, I used to fix guests to all the seminars and conferences. Nowadays I see that all the elite, as the principal rightly said, why the keynote speaker has to come all the way from this Kerala, 18 hours, 19 hours journey. And I don't know what is the magic, what is the myth that she has conquering all the hearts of the illustrious resource persons. Thank you, Dr. Ajanda. It is adding one more feather on your cap. And when individual grows, the institution also grows. And there is a saying in Tamil, not saying it is, there is a saying in Tamil that neer uera, varapuyera neer ueram, neer uera nellu uera, something uerum. Adumari, the institution is also growing. Okay, good. I'm so happy. There is a competition among the faculty members in the department. They're very close to me. All the faculty members are very close to me. They receive whenever I come here, they extend a warm welcome to me. I enjoy the hospitality extended by the department. Good. And agenda, I would rather say that successful in bringing all the elite illustrious resource persons. One such example here is that she replaced a couple of days back when I was in MS University. She was calling me, and I hesitantly attended her call, and she said, "There is a blessing in this case." She said, "What is that?" I asked her. So and so not coming, and so is replaced. How is it possible? I bring it to the notice of the principal that there is a professor who is newly introduced in the list, in the agenda, in the key speakers list, which is impossible for your information, sir. And that person is Pramod K. Nair. Pramod K. Nair was working in IFLU University, Hyderabad. He is very close to, there is my Mapillai who is working in Sadaktulappa College, Hanif, who had been waiting for this Pramod Nair's appointment for 1 year to organize a conference, inviting him as a resource person. He was very particular about inviting Pramod Nair and have a conference. But what is the magic and myth you have inviting him in a day? So that is the successful of this conference, as the principal sir said. And also something I could see some innovations here. How is it possible? I see the invitation. How is it possible when there are technical sessions, when there are resource persons delivering lectures, in between them to fill the gap, you have arranged guest lectures also? Is it your training, sir? Is it your training? Or it is your drilling the teachers? How is it possible, ma'am, Jacqueline? It is impossible. I see that all the topics are Greek and Latin to me. Greek and Latin to me. And all the teachers who are going to give lectures in the afternoon, Greek and Latin to me. I'm really, you deserve this A++ with 3.74, sir. Deserve it. I'm not exaggerating. And then guest lectures. No, this is amazing. And see that the topic that they are going to discuss, this is how you are grooming your teachers in the department. And so you are preparing themselves for the conferences, national, and even Jayanti used to tell me that, I'm on the way to Coimbatore, Pollachi, Erode, as resource persons. Nowadays, I'm so happy. And also you are producing. Padmasini is every month she is producing PhD candidate. Good to see you like this. Very good. Sir, in all spheres, there is growth in the department. thanks to the head of the department. It is very hard, as you rightly said, it's very hard, difficult to get the cooperation, coordination from the ladies who are working in the department. Very particular. And that's what the keynote speaker, Dr. Joseph, said. Is your ward very popular among the students? There was thundering applause when Nirmal came here. When Nirmal came here, thundering applause. I said, he's the only gent in the department. Like me, in my department also, I'm the only gent. Thank God now, I used to say, Yama, say Yima, Sutamma. This is how I execute work from our department. That is another interesting thing. Then what not? I prepared a lot, but I don't find time. Thank God that you have given me on 10 to 15 minutes. But I felt myself when I was preparing for this conference, simply, I said, honestly, I say, consciously, I say that I wasted all my years working as an administrator, like IQAC, NAC, and all nonsense that you have read out. Probably, had I put my soul and heart in literature, by this time I would have become one of the resource persons in the conferences organized in all institutions, because that much influence that I have in literature or in the field of literature, people who are working in different institutions. And இன்னைக்கு ஒரு முக்கியமான நாள். I don't know whether you did it consciously or unconsciously or deliberately you did it. I don't understand. What is the day today? Rama Navami, on the auspicious day we are discussing mythology. Rama Navami, that's a Rama Navami. This is the right day. Today is the right day to discuss all the mythologies. What is Rama Navami? It's a festival in Hinduism. It's a festival in Hinduism. And that's what I asked my wife this morning. No, Dinamalaru helped her to develop her, what is it called, knowledge in Hinduism. இன்னைக்கு தினமலர் நீங்க பாத்தீங்கன்னா தினமலர்லாம் அருமையா போட்டிருக்கான். பியூட்டிஃபுல்லா ஒரு கேர்ளை போட்டு அப்படின்னா பைய பாப்பான்னு சொல்லிட்டு ஃபர்ஸ்ட் பேஜ்ல ஒரு அருமையான பிள்ளைய போட்டு he has written one beautiful adage about Ramanavami. Then third page, turn to third page ன்னு சொல்லிட்டு there is an inquisitiveness. There is an inquisitiveness about what is written in the third page. Similarly, mythology also creates kind of inquisitiveness about the culture of different literatures. Third page la enna potirukanu paathen pona onna potirukanga Ramajayam Sri Ramajayam nambiya verukku edu bayamnu potirukkan. It's good. So agenda, I don't know whether you consciously fixed it or not, but it's the right day. It is an auspicious day that you have started this seminar, and I think that I can stop with this because I have prepared a lot, but I don't find time. But see, as the principal rightly said, theme, the speakers and the sponsors, if you read it, there is an answer from me when people raise the question. I was not able to answer because he had an association with someone who was working in I was skeptical about it, whether she had someone there from Sahitya Akademi. But see there, I had a little doubt. I was skeptical about it. But see, when I was going through the concept note, that was the answer for all the questions raised by all the distinguished professors. Excellent concept note that you have written in the invitation. That would have inspired. It is not easy to inspire people in the helm of affairs. And see there, when I was going through the brochure, when I was going through the concept note, I have answers for a lot of questions on which you can deliver a lecture for an hour. Yes, I have given here. I have listed out all these things. So see, she has given me an answer for what is classic, what is Indian literature, what are the genres, what are the themes, and what is the role of Indian classics. She has classified everything. And then you have see that classics in world literature, and then their impacts, themes of classics. And then you have, she has beautifully concluded the draft, saying that would have inspired. That is the message of any mythology. That is the message of any sacred text. That is the message of any religion in the world. That we learn. See there, We have different cultures. Now, actually, I wanted to speak on comparing. The title itself inspires me. See, they're comparing Indian literature with Indian classic with the classics of the world literature. Beautiful that is. Engarundu vandan enakku theriyala. See that even there is a professor who is going to deliver a lecture, Bennett sir. Now he is going to give a lecture on revisiting myth or revisiting classic in the modern era. So when I was reading this title, I remembered one of the texts recently published. Like we have seen Sita as an embodiment of women, as an embodiment of love, an embodiment of patience, an embodiment of serving her husband. But now see that people are revisiting the classics, and there came a book called Sita, the Mythilai of Warrior. Sita, the warrior of Mythilai. No more she is an embodiment of love. No more she is an embodiment of patience. Now she is looked at as a warrior. So now people are looking at it as revisiting and rewriting stories. So this is the right time to discuss the mythology. See there, I wanted to compare, but paucity of time, I conclude here that the message that she has given in the concept note that I wanted to compare both what is it called, Greek and Indian myths. But see there, we have different cultures, we have different culture, we have different gods and goddesses, we have different worships, and we have different languages. But in spite of that, that is the message that she has given. Don't forget that we are all human beings. We are all human beings. That is the message she has given. That is what all the sacred texts convey. Texts convey the message. Whatever you worship, whatever the gods and goddesses you worship, whatever culture you belong to, always you remember that we are all human beings. That is the message of this seminar, and I have not touched upon whatever I have prepared, but see there, paucity of time. Probably next time you give me, what is it called, one session, if you trust me. Okay. And with these words, I conclude. I wish the seminar, because it's the right day, as I told you, that it is an auspicious day, auspicious time. It is a time to go back. It is a time to revisit all the mythologies. Without mythologies, no, it is not possible. The humankinds. Now, this is the base for all our culture and heritage. All our culture and heritage. Now, even this morning when I was asking my wife, who is this Jadayu and Sampati? Kalumaleni ஏன் வந்துன்னு கேட்கிறேன் நான் இன்னைக்கு என் ஒய்ஃப்ட்ட கேட்டேன். உனக்குலாம் இது எப்படிப்பா தெரியும்னா, she says that நான்லாம் படிக்கும்போது I was told, see, mythologies, how did you read? How many of you in this venue, how many of you have read Mahabharata and Ramayana and all these things? Full text. Salute to you, madam. Salute to you also. By this time, then you would have become saint. How is it possible to become a woman here, a housewife? Okay. See that. Naam padikumbodhu probably our distinguished principal may know, Smulyaka may know. I learned Ramayanam through this puppet shows. Puppet shows. நம்ம ஊர்ல சொல்லுவாங்க, what is it called, பாவக்கூத்து. பாவக்கூத்துல ஒரு வாரத்துக்கு ஒரு வந்து அங்கதான் பப்பட் ஷோ வச்சு ராமன், சீதா and all the characters are introduced. All the characters introduced. Or see there, there's stories narrated by our grandparents. Or now the sacred text. Now you see that you have so many apps to learn. And late in the middle ages, now you learned all these things through television serials. 10 மணினா ஒரு கூட்டம் உட்கார்ந்துரும். ராமாயணம், மகாபாரதம், ஜெய் ஹனுமான், all these things. So அப்படியெல்லாம் லேர்ன் பண்ண ஒரு text or the Idigasans. Now it is an opportunity for all the all the millennium children, I would rather say that, all the millennium children, it is an opportunity to learn the mythology without which life is impossible. Myth is not a myth, it is our breath. Okay, so with this, I wish the seminar all success and a discourse on mythology. I wish the convener, the organizing secretary, the English department, and the principal, the entire institution, and the participants or the learners, it would be an insightful, no doubt in it, it would be an insightful and enlightening session for the next 2 days. Thank you so much. All the best.
Thank you very much for your casual, brilliant presentation. We are much delighted for your appreciation and blessings. Thank you, Dr. Ram sir. At this August gathering, it's my great pleasure to inform you that we have received 200 papers for this conference across the world. So this is time for us to release the proceedings. I request dignitaries on the dais to join with us to release the proceedings. Now the keynote speaker, Dr. Joseph Koyapalli, is receiving our first book of the proceedings and our happy to see the dignitaries unwrapping the proceedings here. Our head of the institute is receiving the first proceeding. I request thank you, dignitaries. Before our guest keynote address, I'm overwhelmed with ecstasy to highlight his star-studded educational attainments. He is none other than Dr. Joseph Koyapalli, is the professor and head of the Department of English and Comparative Literature, Central University of Kerala. He is CU, Kerala's first regular head of the department and first regular dean of school, and the founding head of the departments of Hindi and the Department of Linguistics. Dr. Joseph worked at the English departments of central government institutions of higher education in Bhutan, India, and Saudi Arabia. At present, Sir serves CU Kerala in several capacities. He is a member of the University Court, University Executive Council, University Academic Council, University Finance Committee, and is also the director of the University Placement Cell, the Center for Language Skills, the Center for Translation Studies. He is a recognized translator and Shakespeare scholar. He offers a 4-credit postgraduate MOOC Shakespeare across cultures through Swayam for UGC and CEC. He has published 3 books, 2 translations and 1 editor work. This much sought after resource person has written more than 40 articles and has given more than 80 invited lectures. So we are eagerly waiting for your versatile presentation.
Sir.
Respected Principal, Professor Dr. S. Ganesh Ram, the Head of the Department, Dr. Sumati,
the Dr. Ram Subbaiah, who gave the inaugural address, Dr. B. Ajanda, the convener of the program, and Dr. Sudha Devi, other faculty members, participants, my dear students, and the people who are attending the conference online. I'm very happy to be here in this conference. As many people have already spoken, there is a distinct charm when you come to this department, when you come to this college. When Nirmal got me from the railway station, he was telling me something about the college. Sir, you know, we have a college. It got A++. In the last 6 years, our principal has changed the face of the department. I said, you know, this is everybody says. No. But when I came to the campus, I found the distinct difference. It's a very highly disciplined, organized, and no-nonsense campus. I congratulate the principal for getting the A++ because you deserve it. And also, Dr. Ajanda, I congratulate you for ably organizing this conference. And Dr. Ram Subbaiah was asking, you know, how she managed to get people. Actually, her correspondence started with me for almost more than a year or so. In the sense, last year she had been talking to me about this, and this year I couldn't say no. It's a bit distant place, but it's worth coming here. And a person who can easily arrange Professor Pramod Nair, as he said, must be pretty good at organizing things. And I'm very happy that my former Board of Studies member and head of the CU Tamil Nadu English Department, Professor Nirmal Selvamani, is also attending online. Any institution is only good as the people working in it. And the leader that you get, as in any democracy, is a person that you deserve. So you have a very good leader, a very good team, and a very good student. And that is why you actually earn. You earn your A++. It is not a gift by somebody. You earned every point of it. And when I looked at the campus and was commenting to Nirmal, saying that, you know, there's a person who knows how to do the business of administering an academic institution. There is no nonsense here. Everything is to the point. Makes sense. Now, my topic here is speaking about giving you the keynote address on Romanticism, comparative literature, and early translation of Abhijnana Shakuntalam. As you can see, there are 3 key terms there: Romanticism, comparative literature, and translation with respect to Shakuntalam. I teach in a department of comparative literature, English and comparative literature, and I do some translations. Romanticism is a major movement which we all familiar with. Nobody goes through English department without going through the Romantic period. Not being romantics, but being a Romantic period of literature. Now, how did this Romanticism begin in the Western world is one question. Second question is that what has India to do with it? Many people often wonder, you know, whether we have something to do with the Romanticism or the Western idea, or what Romanticism has Shelley something to do with, or Wordsworth something to do with this? The point is yes, that's the problem. It was in the year 1789, the year of the French Revolution, that Abhijnana Shakuntalam got translated. And it was, as you know, the French Revolution influenced, because in the postgraduate students, you know that we often speak about, you know, the influence of French Revolution on Wordsworth and so on. It was not a one-day affair. It was a long process. Who translated this? Abhijnana Shakuntalam? This is my question is to the students. Anybody? Who first translated Abhijnana Shakuntalam into English? Oh, it's an English text, am I right? Yes or no? Abhijnana Shakuntalam is an English text. Yes? Sorry? Okay. Abhijnana Shakuntalam is a text by Kalidasa about 4th century AD. And it was translated into English for the first time by 1789 by a person called William Jones. Who is William Jones? He became a philologist. Originally, he was a civil servant in the British establishment. When he came here, he looked at the languages. It's very interesting. When I tell you the story of Abhijnana Shakuntala, you will be getting to know of it better. Abhijnana Shakuntala was published in the year 1789. It means that he had started working on it much before. So as a process, in 1784, if you remember, if you know, the Asiatic Society of Bengal was founded. The same year, they also published Bhagavad Gita into English, Charles Wilkins. That was the first Indian text to be translated into English language. First Sanskrit text to be published into English language. So as the process of translating, they understood something. There is a relationship between these languages. But how can they understand that when they translate from Sanskrit to English, that there is a relationship between Sanskrit, Latin, and Greek, which led to a major hypothesis, as you know. You're as a part of English literature, you are studying about that. They said, for example, the word father is related to the Latin word pater, mother with mater, door with dwar, and so on. How come? Then I was also interested in that. As an MA student, I never knew why is it so. One reason is that they all studied Latin and Greek. This was a part of their academic curriculum. But that was not it. The reason was that when I went through William Jones's translation of Abhijnana Shakuntalam, he says that I translated this first into Latin, not into English. Word by word, I translated the entire text into Latin because Latin and Sanskrit were the most compatible. So he translated every word into Latin and then he translated the sense of that into English, making sure that he has not lost anything. This is a classic technique in translation, the interlinear translation, or word by word translation. You write a word, you write a sentence, and next to that, you write the translation of each word. Each word and its grammatical category you translate and then you proceed. That way you are not going to miss anything. That's one way of translation. This is exactly the way of translation that William Jones did. So, after doing that, William Jones published this translation, and this translation goes to Europe. And some people, on George Foster, he translated this text from Jones's English. He read Jones's English version, and then he became interested in the text, especially because of his comment that I translated that into Latin. So he managed to get from William Jones, the Latin translation of William Jones, and then he translated that text into German. By 1790s, you find this text available in German language. And this was introduced for first time. And then later, another person called Herder, who is important for comparative literature. Herder takes it up and Herder brings out the text with an introduction. And there is an introduction, a preface for that particular text. Now, Herder brings it out, and looking at the Foster's first edition, It was the second edition that, our header brings out. Looking at the first edition of the text, one of the greatest figures of German literature, Goethe, he writes something about, he actually breaks into a kind of ecstasy about Shakuntalam. Shakuntalam fascinated German imagination like anything, and he, writes a eulogy about that. He also produces a German drama on the basis of this, on the German translation, and he also introduced, if you know that his famous text is called Faust, not Faustus, Faust. In Faust, he begins in the way in which Shakuntalam drama begins, with a Nandi. People come, there's a prayer, and after that the actors are introduced, and the Sutradhar comes and tells the actor, look, these are the people here, very important people, you have to play it very well, because these are discerning people. In Faust, Goethe uses the same technique. And then this goes into about 14 different languages in a span of 2 decades. 46 translations of the text. Just imagine what is the importance of this one particular text. And then what about Romanticism? Goethe is the beginning point of comparative literature as far as Western literature is concerned. He speaks about the world literature. World literature. And our Tagore, who the inaugural speaker was speaking about, our Tagore was interested in the same expression used by Goethe, Weltliteratur or world literature. World literature. Goethe was interested in comparison of literatures of the world. And now here, Tagore, speaking out in 1917, Tagore gave an address to what is called today as Jadavpur University. At that time, is National Education something, some small institution. He was giving a lecture there, and in that literature, Tagore for the first time uses the word Vishwa Sahitya. So today, departments of comparative literature is all around the world today. I'm sure in your English department also, it is no longer literature written by English men or women that are being taught today. Today you have literatures in translation from the local languages, from other languages of the world. This was the impact of comparative literature. Comparative literature actually began as an exercise to translate and to bring about and study literatures of the world. That's why translation became either the mother of comparative literature or the daughter of comparative literature. There is a lot of debate about that. Now today, we have comparative literature as a major discipline. And now people say that relevance of the discipline is gone now. That discipline is no longer relevant because we have converted all the English departments into practically comparative literature departments. Now we are no longer speaking, I don't know, for example, in my university, when I started, when I was a student, Shakespeare was very important. One of the most important paper. So I decided to get specialized in Shakespeare. So I did a PhD from JNU, specialized in Shakespeare. I could have done in many other subjects. It was possible for me, but I decided to do it on Shakespeare. Then after doing my PhD on Shakespeare, I realized, well, there is an agenda for introducing Shakespeare, a classic, into Indian literature. What is that agenda? They wanted to show that Kalidasa is the Indian Shakespeare. Look at the anachronistic reference. Anachronistic means Kalidasa lived about more than 1000 years ago before Shakespeare. Now, how can you say Kalidasa is the Indian Shakespeare? Other than we should say Shakespeare is the English Kalidasa, am I right? But when I asked Professor Harish Trivedi the same question, he said, unfortunately, we did not rule England, England ruled us. So it's a question of power in the discourse. So the basic point is, when English was introduced in India, when English literature was introduced in India, there was an agenda for the people for introducing that particular agenda, that particular literary work in India and promoting that literary work as something great. You know that Shakespeare was first taught as a subject in India, not in England. English literature was taught as a subject for the first time in India. More people take MA in English literature in India than anywhere in the world. Don't we have the ability to set our agenda? That's what the government is trying to do today. We are trying to tell the world, now we decide. What our students are going to do, we are going to decide. New education policy is all about that. There's a big agenda behind it. Not agenda, there is an agenda behind it. Now, we will tell the world, because India wants to restore its prime position as the Vishwa Guru in the world. What is India? What is that India? India includes each of you, am I right? Bharati had said it long ago, Tamil poet. Muppadu kodi mukamudayal, enil meipuram ondudayal. Aval seppumozhi 18 enil sindrine ondudayal. Today, 30 kodi allai, 140 kodi irukku. 140 crore people, and your face is one of them. Together, we are going to decide whether this party comes to power, that party comes to power, that is none of our business. This land is going to decide that we are in the forefront of the world, leading the world. Why am I speaking this to you? I am speaking this to you, the students, because you are the future of India. India is the youngest country in the world. Can you believe it? It's the youngest country. The average age of India is 29 years old. For till about, say, 2055, we will be the youngest country in the world. Whatever you are going to do today, the world is going to get tomorrow. Not India, not Tamil Nadu, not Satur. The world is going to get tomorrow what you are going to decide, what you are going to do. More CEOs of the top companies will come from India. That's the way it is bound to be. So we have a way to influence the rest of the world. So when you look at the question of classics, we should understand classic is also a construct. It is not that the classics are out there actually. It is not out there. A Shakespeare was discovered many years after his death. A first folio of Shakespeare was created in 1623. Two of his friends, Hemming and Condell, came out with the text of Shakespeare. But after that, Shakespeare was completely forgotten. The first birth centenary of Shakespeare, he was born in 1564. In 1664, there was no celebration about the birth centenary of Shakespeare. But his birth centenary became celebrated. Shakespeare became an author when the British Empire began to flex its muscles. When it became a colonial empire, a sun empire where the sun doesn't rest or set, then Shakespeare became a great figure. Have you heard about a Spanish writer who is a contemporary of Shakespeare? Anybody? How many plays did Shakespeare write? 37. How many novels did he write? How many novels did he write? No? How many poems did he write? 3 long poems and sonnets? Yes. What about somebody who has written 1,000? There was a contemporary of Shakespeare, a Spanish contemporary of Shakespeare, who wrote more than 300 novels, more than 500 plays, and more than 1,000 works, Lope de Vega. Have you heard about him? No, we have not heard about him. Why? Because Spanish did not rule the world like what Englishmen did. So it was a construction. This is very important. Harish Trivedi's answer was very correct when he said, unfortunately, we did not rule England. Had Indians ruled England, remember, English people would have been studying today our Silapadigaram, Manimekalai. They are not studying it today. They are studying it better than us. That's another part. Okay, they are studying much better than us. But it is not in the popular parlance, not in the departments, just like how we do Shakespeare or Chaucer. Why do we do that? Now let me come back to, the history of Kalidasa Shakuntala. Let me go through my paper, then it will be more compact for you. So I gave you this background in order to tell you this is what we are looking at. So chronologically considered, the birth of comparative literature begins with the translation of literary works of India in the Middle East, India and the Middle East into European languages. The major figures associated with comparative literature are also associated with the translation of and the study of world literature. Although comparative literature begins with the Hungarian scholar Hugo Metzel-Lomin's journal Acta Comparationis Literatum Universarum and the Irish scholar Posnett's comparative literature, these are the two early works of comparative literature, which we define. But these comes in 1800s. Its roots are found in the German writer Goethe's ideas of world literature and the use of comparative literature by the English critic Matthew Arnold, whose ideas of classicism and romanticism were derived from the German sources, particularly from Goethe. It has evolved into a transnational, transmedial, and transcultural studies of literature and focuses on the study of literature from different cultures, nations, genres, and explores the relationship between literature and other forms of cultural expression. Its main ideological roots of comparative literature are genealogy, that is the study of genres. What does comparative literature do? If somebody asks you, tell them this is the answer. It studies genres of literature, genealogy, or morphology is the study of the form or how the way literary works looks like, or the proceedings, or thematology, or the study of themes, internationality, the study of literary relations across the boundaries of language, and historiology, that is a study of historical configuration within literature. George Brandes, who is called the father of comparative literature by some people, because he celebrated the French school of comparative literature. There are different schools of comparative literature. One of the major schools is a French school. There's another school called American school. There is another school, Canadian school. There is another called Indian school, a Russian school, a German school. There are different schools. But the most important was the French school. So he called it the French hour, that is between the 19th century and the end of the World War II. It sets the conditions for the literary text to be studied and the relationship between them, and is obsessed with the terminology and distinguishes between the influence, reception, borrowing, and imitation. These are the four major things that it studies: influence, reception, borrowing, and imitation. Russian school uses it to study the interaction between Russian literature and the artistic and cultural fields as a space for public discussion and as a part of contemporary cultural environment. The German school, which began in the late 19th century, developed after the World War II, largely because of the work of Peter Zonzi, a Hungarian scholar who taught at the Free University of Berlin. The Russian, the Canadian, American, and Indian schools of comparative literature have also been strong at different times. In India, it received the impetus from Rabindranath Tagore's lecture on the subject when he was called to address the National Council of Education in 1907, which is now known as the Jadavpur University. However, it was first established at the Department of Comparative Literature, Comparative Indian Languages at the University of Calcutta, celebrating Sir Ashutosh Mukherjee, who was the main force behind the Department of Indian Languages, which was started in 1919, the year in which the Tradition and Individual Talent was written by T.S. Eliot. Indian school, like the American school, not only compares one literature with another, but also compares literature with other arts. India offers ample scope for comparative study with the traditions, with the rich traditions, arts, and cultures. Indian influence in Germany has been significant. This is a point that I am going to speak about. Buddhism and Vedanta philosophy fascinated the Germans when it was translated, and they got it. See, all the Europeans were after India's wealth. When colonialism happened, all the European nations wanted the wealth of India because they knew India is very, 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 very rich, unimaginably rich. They always thought about Indians rich, Indians decadent because of its richness. India actually is a wealthy nation. Even though we say India is a land of poor people, I'm sure every Indian woman has got some gold in her. Am I right? Yes or no? An English woman, on the other hand, lives on credit card, plastic, and she is in debt because of this. You are not. They celebrate their wealth. We keep our wealth for tomorrow. That's the Indian way of living. That's a comfortable philosophy that we have. Now, when the colonial powers started invading India, the Germans did not jump into the first boat. So they missed it. The Portuguese, the Spaniards, the Dutch, the French, the English, everybody came to India, established and looted the wealth of India. And the Germans found themselves totally lost. And then they said, it's a very important statement. As far as India's material wealth is concerned, we lost. We missed the opportunity. But as far as India's intellectual wealth is concerned, we will exploit it. As far as India's intellectual wealth is concerned, we are going to exploit it. This is exactly what they did. We find many scholars coming from there. And there are many people who came from there, and they studied India's languages. They gave us something for us, and they took books from here. They went to the universities of Berlin, Bonn, so many universities they built up. I will read a couple of them now. So a couple of them which fascinated them was Buddhism and Vedanta. I'm just missing some of the names. I just miss out because there is no time. And you know, if you look at there are many works. To give you a couple of names, I'll give you the translation, not in English. The Pilgrim of Kamaneta, The Wife of the Perfect, The Mirror Man, The Jataka Tales, which was translation, Rilke's Snake Charmer, Buddha's Parable on the Burning House, The Himalayan Epic, translated by Charles Godwin, Hermann Hesse's Siddhartha, Thomas Mann's The Transposed Heads, A Legend of India, Hayavadana, you remember, Transposed Heads, and The White Buffalo, Show Your Tongue, and so many works. The European Romantic literature was influenced by the Eastern literature and culture as the translations helped to introduce German readers to the worldview. Abhijnana Shakuntalam became an important text in the comparative literature context, as in it the customs of the Hindus, their opinions, prejudices, the fables, their religious rites, daily occupations, and amusements are reflected in a mirror, says Williams. Friedrich Schlegel wrote something that is paradigmatic, not only for romantics, but also for the reception of India from the antiquity to the present. If only the treasures of the Orient were accessible to those of to us as those of the antiquity, if only the treasures of the Orient were accessible to us as those of the antiquity, what new source of poetry could then flow from India? In the Orient, we must look for the most sublime form of the romantic, the most profound and the innermost life of imagination. India is considered by the German authors to be something imaginative, dreamlike, and magical, the primordial and even the ideal, for which one longs. This is a quotation. German Romanticism was a literary and cultural movement that emerged in Germany at the end of the 18th and flourished throughout the 19th century. Between 1795 and 1813, we have three different phases of the German Romanticism. That is the early, high, and the late Romanticisms. Romanticism is characterized by a renewed interest in nature, emotion, individualism, paganism, idealization of nature, suspicion of science and industrialization, as well as the glorification of the past with a strong presence of the medieval rather than the classical. It influenced German literature, art, and music. In the 19th century, German scholars became interested in Indian literature and culture, and they began translating Indian texts into German. These translations played an important role in the development of comparative literature, which is a study of literature across national and linguistic boundaries, and also influenced German Romanticism significantly. German Romanticism, comparative literature, and the Indologist William Jones's translation of Kalidasa's Abhijnana Shakuntalam, the love story between Dushyanta and Shakuntala, became, it is a 184-page document which he translated, and he calls it Shakuntala, the fatal ring. Now, this is a very interesting way. Abhijnana Shakuntalam does not have the word ring there. Abhijnana means recognition, recognizing. Abhijnana, recognition of Shakuntala, whom Dushyanta has forgotten. But in the translation, it says Shakuntala, or the fatal ring, translated from original Sanskrit and Prakrit. And it refers, as it introduces him, he speaks about Kalidasa as our illustrious poet, this Shakespeare of India. This is the first reference that we get about comparing Shakespeare with India. Sorry, Shakespeare with Kalidasa. The German genius, sorry, thank you. The German genius George Foster produced a German translation of Shakuntala, 1791, from the English translation which he had made from Jones's Latin draft. He retained the prologue, but the poet in poetry, but in the rest of the part he wrote in prose. Now, this person, George Foster, was a French revolutionary. He was participating in French Revolution at the time. He, at the time when they were fighting against the French bourgeoisie, this Mainz Jacobin, that is person Jacobin, that's a French revolutionary group from Mainz, he was producing the translation into German. He sent a copy to Herder, and Herder was happy about it. He sent a copy to Goethe. Goethe became very happy about it. He wrote a prologue, a 4-line, a kind of eulogy, 4 lines he wrote about that. And then I will read that. It reads like this. There are different translations for this particular expression. I have 3 different translations here. If one word of blooms of early and fruits of riper years, of excitement and enchantment, I should tell, of fulfillment and content of heaven and earth, then will I but say Shakuntala and have said all. Apart from the meaning of it, I want you to concentrate on the 2 uses of the word I. This is a Goethe's version, I. If in one word of blooms of early and fruits of riper years, the early fruits and the mature fruits, if I put them together, if in one word of excitement and enchantment, I should tell, then I should say of fulfillment and contentment of heaven and earth, then I will say, but say Shakuntala. If I get all these to me, I will just one word, I can summarize everything, that is Shakuntala. Now this word is used by Goethe, I is used by Goethe when he translated it. Sorry, when he was eulogizing it, and he gave it to Herder. When Herder edited Foster's translation later, Herder uses this expression. Instead of I, he changes into you. Why does he do that? Instead of I, he changes into you. This is two different viewpoints. One is the viewpoint of Forster and Gethe. The other is the viewpoint of Herder. I will speak about that in a minute. And he said them on the article on Eastern drama, and later again on his introduction in 1803. Impressed by its language and philosophical plot, Shakuntala, don't read it as a plain text. It's a very highly philosophical text also. Because Indian language, as Professor earlier spoken about mythology, we don't look at the manifest thing first. What underlies it is more important. It's a very, very difficult language for people to understand. My specialization is a subject called semiotics. Shakespeare is a pretext to do my semiotic reading. I was trying to do semiotics. So when people say, India, you have so many gods and so many weird kind of gods, I tell them, you don't understand the language of it. Only thing is that you write it in words and Indians write poetry with stones. You try to understand that, and then you will say what it actually means for you. They can write an abstract concept in some columns. And that idea you will not get until you become an Indian. This is exactly what Herder, the difference between Herder and Forster. This is what later in how much time do I have, sir? I don't want to get into the next person. Okay. Now, this is the difference that, the two writers, two major critics of this translations of Shakuntalam wrote. One is my old friend, the Dorothy Figueira, who was also my modern studies member, and he was one who drafted the syllabus for comparative literature for my department. Dorothy Figueira is an American scholar who speaks French and German, and her major publication in 1990s was about this Shakuntalam translations. And there she takes one kind of approach. It's actually a post-colonial approach by a Westerner on Shakuntalam translations. Then my JNU professor, Romila Thapar, the historian, sorry, you know her, yeah. When I was there, she was a professor, and still she is a great professor. Professors don't retire. Only, academic institutions tell them you are retired, but, professors never retire. Now, Romila Thapar wrote another essay on the same reception of Shakuntalam translations by the West. And she takes another viewpoint. So we get two radically divergent viewpoints about the same Shakuntalam translations, just like Herder and Forster did. Forster was trying to promote a kind of, paternalistic attitude towards Indian translations. See, Indians have done great things, so let's admire the Indian translations. Now, Forster, on the other hand, Forster, on the other hand, was saying that you should not understand Indian reality in your terms. India has a great philosophy of its own. Indian language is different, Indian imagery is different. The way India conceives the world reality is different. So you cannot understand India after your understanding. Rather, you should understand India in terms of India's understanding. That anybody could have said. One level of scholarship, you could have said that. Herder goes one step ahead. And he tells in that book, you see, not only that you should not understand India in your terms, you should try to understand your reality by using India's perception. You should try to understand your reality, the Western reality, by looking at India's perception. Years later, in 1923 or 24, Wasteland was written. You remember the last lines? Datta Daya Dondameda. Himavan speaks, and you come back for solutions to India. This is nothing new. This is nothing new. Because most of these great scholars that you understand from the West, who is the father of modern linguistics? Ferdinandi? Ferdinandi Saussure. We heard about him. The course in general linguistics. What was his PhD on? He was doing a PhD on Sanskrit. The great people, I am going to read a list of names of people who have just revolutionized our understanding. Look at these. This is important because they listened to Herder and they did not listen to Foster. Who are they? Franz Bopp, Frederick Schlegel, Ferdinand de Saussure, Leonard Bloomfield, Noam Chomsky, Voltaire, Hegel, Schopenhauer, Emerson, Henry Thoreau, Leo Tolstoy, T.S. Eliot, Niels Bohr, Schrödinger, Heisenberg, Oppenheimer, Mark Twain, Carl Jung, Salinger. These are all people who studied Sanskrit literature or Sanskrit language. Can we understand that? They changed their perception. They tried to understand their reality after Indian reality, after Indian perception. Because there was a point where they could not understand, decipher their reality anymore. They followed Herder's advice. You should not Foster's advice. Foster was saying very paternalistically, India is a land where, just like the classical colonialist viewpoint, India is a feminine nation. It is to be saved by the masculine, West. That is one perception of colonialists. Now, what happened to the same nation after some time? Now, many of the Western top firms are being controlled by Indians. Even our former colonial government is controlled by an Indian today. It's only the beginning. I'm sure I'm hopeful about your generation. That's why we are asking you to study better. Okay? When your professor out here, your principal is spending your time for you, or when your head of the department is spending your time for you, or when a lieutenant doctor Ajanta is guiding you, you have a duty to become even better than them. We have to change the perception from Foster's perception to Herder's perception. Many people have accepted it and they have become great. Only problem is that we are not listening to it. We are after Western paradigms even today. Why should we be? People who are sure about our roots. This is one of the greatest, oldest nation in the world. Which one? Tamilagam. That's what I'm speaking about. Tamil is one of the oldest languages in the world, or perhaps the oldest language in the world. You don't understand your inheritance. I'm from the other side of the Sahia Hills. We are also speaking Tamil, only moderated by Sanskrit. You are not moderated by Sanskrit, that's all. You keep the pure, old, ancient language. You inherit that. You are a great people, or we are a great people. When Sanskrit and Tamil shake hands, even greater things should come. Now, when I'm only speaking about Shakuntalam now, there is many translations of Shakuntalam which came out. So to give you a list of the translations, I was looking at these translations. See, 1789, William Jones, Shakuntala or the Fatal Ring. 1855, Monia Williams, Shakuntala or the Lost Ring. 1858, Theophil, Shakuntala is a ballet. Goswami, 1895, Abhijnana Shakuntalam. But Krishna Kamal Bhattacharya, again simply titled Shakuntalam. Another one, a foreigner, Ed Green, his name is Shakuntala or the Recovered Ring. M.R. Kale, Abhijnana Shakuntalam. Then another famous translation is by Arthur Ryder, Kalidasa, translation of Shakuntala and other works. And Another famous, perhaps the most famous translation today is by Miller, Barbara Miller. It's called The Theatre of Memory, the plays of Kalidasa. And in that, she has this particular text called Shakuntala on the Ring of Recollections. And there are others, but then the title doesn't change much. Why is that the Westerners are very interested about the ring? We are not speaking about the ring. In our translations, we are not speaking. Ring is there. Ring is only, instead of ring, it could have been something else. For us, it doesn't matter. But for them, that key matters. They stop at signs or signifiers. For us, we could have had another signifier. It could have been a kundala. Am I right? It could have been a nose ring. It could have been anything. Now, for them, the fatal ring, where is this word fatal comes from? That comes from their understanding of their way of understanding their drama. The fatal flaw in character. Catharsis, you're speaking about, am I right? And the remembrance, anagnosis, realization of that. There, see, when you look at these translations, what you have to understand is that they are trying to look at the Indian reality in their terms and not in our terms. None of these Indian translators use the word fatal ring. Ring, they don't use. Fatal, they never use. It is not fatal for us. The Indian perception is that it is not fatal because we believe in the circularity. The Kala Chakra. For them, it is a linear time. For us, one person, you are rich today, tomorrow you will be a beggar. Today you are a beggar, tomorrow you will be a rich person. Today you are a human being, tomorrow you will be something else. Depends on your karma, am I right? So we have a different take on the world. That is why we are not greedy. Why is that your parents live with you? There's a beautiful question asked to, and you might have seen that, asked to our former Miss World, Aishwarya Rai Bachchan. He says, isn't it a shame that, parents are still, you young people, you're about 22, 23 years old, you're still living with your parents, am I right? Isn't it a shame? Because in the Western world, people don't. Aishwarya Rai gives a beautiful answer to them. Sir, we don't have to take appointments with our parents to meet them. Yeah? We don't have to take appointments for us to meet our parents. They are there. And we don't deposit them in the old age homes when they become old. They are part of us. They are us. They are our extensions. So this Indian reality is well reflected in some translation. This is exactly the difference between Chandra Raja's translation of Shakespeare and the Western translations of Shakespeare. When an Indian translates, we translate this with the Indian reality in mind. So when translation is a very simple, it's not exactly very simple subject. I translated one novel. It's called God Days. Penguin published it. It is a story about, if you have not read it, please go and read it. It's a very beautiful, very short one. It was about to win the Man Asia Booker Prize. It was fifth in the list. And I was supposed to get the top translators prize in 2012. I was shortlisted in that top 3. But this particular, why did after that I never translated anything. The reason why I had to translate that book was because I was teaching that for my department. I was teaching a subject called Diaspora Studies. And as a part of the Diaspora Studies, I had to translate my experience in diaspora. Diaspora Pravasa. I don't know what's the Tamil word for it. Exile. Okay. So when you are in diaspora, I was living in the Gulf for some time. I was teaching in a university there. And then I came across many of the Indians, Bengalis, people from the South Asian countries, coming and working like slaves there. I did not feel any empathy for them because here also people come and work for us. There also people come for workers. But when I read this novel, I realized I am guilty. So at that point, I was guilt-ridden and I had to translate this experience in diaspora. I had to translate because I get all the other diasporas written in English. Tamil diaspora, I get in Punjabi diaspora, Bengali diaspora, Gujarati diaspora. We get in English literature. But this Malayali diaspora, which I experience, is not written. And I'm teaching in the Central University of Kerala. So I had to translate. So I translated the book and started teaching them. And later the book got award and the Penguin contacted me for publication and they published it. But when in retrospect, when I look at it, why is that translation a successful one? I know it is a successful one because I still am getting the royalty for it. Okay. That's why, every year I am getting the money for it. So it means that the book is being sold. And from the Penguins report, I understand this is one of their most successful translations in terms of sale. Why is that translation became successful? Because the author who wrote it had the similar experience of mine. He was almost of my same age, almost coming from the same area where I live. We did not know each other. And he felt, but he could react because he was a writer. He could react better to that situation and he wrote that. He had to write that. Then after reading it, I realized, okay, my experience matches with him and maybe even better than him because the author had never been to Saudi Arabia where this novel is located. I was living in Saudi Arabia. Some of my students are the cruel people portrayed there because they are the masters of many Indian slaves or Bengali slaves. I did not realize it then. So I had to translate. So the horizon of experience and the horizon of expectations of the author and the translator matched. And that is the success of that particular translation. Now, when Chandra translated Shakuntalam, her experience of Indian reality, now it's a recent translation, not an old translation. She is not colonized. Shakuntalam was written at a time when India was not colonized. India was on its own. India was feeling that it is powerful. It is right on top of the world. Right now, after 70 years of independence, now we feel India has matured enough. There are many political problems. I'm not speaking about any of those, but we feel some kind of a confidence. Okay, now we have our footing. At least we can put our foot down. We can speak. Now, when somebody translates our old ancient text with that kind of confidence and trying to understand the reality in our own terms, that will matter rather than a colonized authors or translators translation. It will be moreover an equal kind of a translation. It will give some better weightage. So what do we get in the whole process? We need to relook at the translations of our classics. Who translated them? Many people say the old Indian texts are not worthless. Macaulay said, no. The one single shelf of English books is enough for the whole classics, all the books written by the Indian. No? Then why did he translate? Why did Harvard University translate 124 Indian texts? It is followed up by Max Muller series, 90 texts. If it was not so, it was so worthless, why did they translate it? Indian classics, why did they translate and why did they study? It is those translations which produce these scholars which I told you. They are the produce of this, our languages, our culture, our understanding produce these great Western minds that we understand. They were looking at Indian texts for their own perception and they were willing to understand from India's perspective. Now, what are we doing? We are not looking at India's text from its own perspective. Sahitya Akademi, which sponsors this, has a motto. Indian literature is one, although it is written in different languages. Indian literature is one, although it is written in different languages. I have the professor that I respect most is one professor who has not taught me, Professor Ayyappa Panikar, a great professor of Kerala. He went to Sahitya Akademi and said, "Your motto is wrong. Indian literature is one because it is written in different languages. Not because although. Because 30 kodi mukhamudayal. Not one face. Our seppumoli 18 udayal. Enil sindane ondudayal. We cannot delete our languages. We cannot iron out our differences. We will have differences. We celebrate our differences. This is something that we have to understand. This is the richness and beauty of India, not uniformity. Uniformity is not our strength. 140 crore people cannot be uniform. We are speaking about 1/5 of the whole world. When a country with 100 acres, Vatican City, has got its own ambassadors all across the country, that is as big as Satur. No, Satur is bigger than the 100 acres, am I right? Your college is maybe more than 100 acres. What about India? India is so big, so diverse. I was part of another book, People's Linguistic Survey of India. After Grierson, 200 years ago, nobody had mapped Indian languages. Even government of India failed to do that. So under the leadership of one of the finest professors of India, Professor G.N. Devi, I and Dr. Srinathan, who was working in the linguistics department of my university at that time, we went for a mapping of the languages of Kerala and Lakshadweep. Under Devi, we produced 50 volumes. For me, I produced only one. Devi was the general editor. And then we asked the question, Tamil edition was also brought out. In every Indian language, every state, every language was mapped. We brought out 50 volumes. In that volume, we asked this question, how many languages do you have? Is this your mother tongue or not? If a person or a group of people consistently say this is our mother tongue, we accept that. We came across more than 800 languages in India, not 22. 800 languages. In a parliamentary question, the number was 1,652. That's for political reasons. But practically, in our study, we came across more than 800 languages in India. This cannot be ironed out into one language. This cannot be ironed out into one religion. This cannot be ironed out into one race. This cannot be ironed out into one culture. No, we celebrate that difference. It is because you are wearing different colors. Tamil Nadu is a place where I am happy to come because you celebrate colors. These colors are important. What about a garden where you go, there's only one kind of rose? That is not what we expect. This may be possible in a 100-acre country, but not in a country where 1/5 of the whole world lives. So any translation of ours, any text of ours, when it goes out, please understand, they found value in it. That's why after 124, they translated another 90. They're still being studied. What are we doing? Are we studying our translation? Are we retranslating our own old texts, just like Chandra did? We need to. We need to look at the classics. And we need to look at not only of our classics, now we need to look at their classics also. How many good translations do we have of the Western classics? These are the challenges before the people who are studying in the English department. Because through the window of English, the world literature comes to you. I'm giving my project to my department. I'm asking each of my students to translate one text. Whether it is correct or not, I ask them to translate, take one text. Over a period of 2 years, you produce one text translated. That can be leading to your MA dissertation. Or if you don't want, don't do it. In the process, it may not be very good first quality, but over a period of time, we are giving those texts to another student to make it better. This is a challenge that we have in India. We have to respond to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for an enlightening and significant presentation on the right way. We have wandered, you have wandered us to the unknown facts of Sakuntala through the known one. Thank you once again, sir. Dear friends, now let's break for tea and again we'll reassemble sharp at 12:30. Now let's break for tea. We'll reassemble sharp at 12:35. Dear participants, we kept tea out.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, sir.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Welcome back, dear friends. It's my great pleasure to have a few words about Professor Nirmal Selvamani. Sir, you're most welcome for this hybrid conference, sir. Former founding head of the Department of English Studies, Dean, School of Social Sciences and Humanities, Central University of Tamil Nadu. Major area of interest in the last 4 decades have been alternative Thinai society, Thinai studies, Tolkapiam, eco-criticism, poetics, and theory. Sir has pioneered the Thinai movement through the discussion group, Thinai Street Theatre, musical performance, and Tamil musicology in the Indian university system. Sir has delivered numerous lectures, seminars, and publications on Thinai and Thinai-related matters. Developed a new area of study known as Thinai Isayiyal, South Indian eco-musicology. Revived in the 1980s, the tradition of Kachi philosophy of Thinai, early Indian primal society, which precedes the Darshanas and formulated a theory of Pudinai, formerly Okapaites, which could interpret non-Thinai societies also. Sir has scripted and directed plays, composed music for plays, and played the guitar professionally. So we have an interesting figure here to deliver a keynote address. Sir, the virtual mode is for you now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Principal Dr. Ganesh Ram, Dr. Sumati, head of the Department of English, Dr. Ajanta, convener of this conference, Dr. Sudha Devi, coordinator of this conference, and Dr. Ramasubaya, who has given the inaugural address, Professor Koipalli, who has given an excellent keynote address, other special invitees and participants. Good morning. Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
Sir, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, good.
We can hear you.
Okay.
If there is any disturbance, let me inform you, sir. Don't worry.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
I would like to thank Mr. Ilango Kallani and Dr. Ajanta for inviting me to speak in this conference. How to be ethical in an unethical state. Listening to Antigone, Tolkapiam, and Tirukkural for any answers in the Anthropocene. Now that's my topic. You may think my question is relevant only in the case of unethical states and not in ethical ones. But a more basic question is, can a state be ethical at all? If corruption is one of the indices of the ethicalness of the state, India is said to be 40% corrupt according to Corruption Perceptions Index 2022. Among the 180 countries studied, if the country ranked 180th is the most corrupt and the first is the least, India is in the 85th place. Could this mean that 40% of us in this union of states are corrupt? If we look at the state of Tamil Nadu, among the 20 states for which there are figures, 62% of Tamil people have paid bribes to get things done through the government. Writing about this survey, a writer named Priyanka Tirumurthy opens her write-up this way. I quote, with a shameful 60% of respondents admitting to having paid bribes to accomplish work in government offices, the state of Telangana leads South India in terms of corruption this year. This is followed by Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, and Kerala. I end quote. I'm particularly interested in Ms. Tirumurthy's use of the word shameful in the opening sentence. The old Tamil equivalent of the English word shame, as the writer has used here, is nan, which is going to be my key conceptual tool to read the Greek classic we are going to look at carefully today. I'm also thankful to Professor Koipalli for mentioning shame in his own address. He was asking the question to adult children, aren't you ashamed of living with your parents or continuing to living with your parents? So we need to honestly admit two things. We are living in a highly corrupt state today, and that it is shameful that we do. Corruption is ultimately a form of disruption of Tinai, our primordial harmonious bond with other people and the supernatural beings such as gods and ancestral beings, a disruption that was necessary to form the state in the first place. In a moment, I will tell you what this disruption is and how it makes a state unethical. Consider the kind of democracy in different states. Democracy Perception Index 2022, which has studied 50 countries in the world and more than 75% of the world's population, connects corruption with democracy. According to this report, 66% of the people view corruption as a threat to democracy in their country, especially in the African and Latin American countries surveyed. And 68% of people thought that economic inequality was the worst threat to democracy all over the world. Inequality implies improper bond among the members of the community. Summarily, it may not be an exaggeration to say that the crisis India and probably the world faces today is basically an ethical one, especially due to disruption of the communitarian bond, of which I will speak quite a bit. Disruption of the communitarian bond has caused not only the ecological crisis, but also the ethical crisis I'm describing. As the root cause of the ecological crisis is an ethical one, the greatest problem we face today is an ethical crisis. It corrupts our harmonious interrelationship, especially kinship with humans and beings other than humans, into a disharmonious, especially a shameful one. The formation of the state was possible some 10,000 years ago, only by corrupting the communitarian bond of pre-state Tinai into a dominant relationship wherein humans imagine divine beings as their superiors and beings other than humans as their inferiors. Among themselves, humans hierarchized their own relationship and created such things as caste and slavery. Almost all the city-states of ancient Greece had slaves. Antigone does mention slaves, but it is set in the mythic city Thebes. When Sophocles was writing this play in the city Athens, with a population of 140,000 people, about 1 lakh of them were slaves. So it is highly likely that Thebes also had its fair share of slave population. From the play, we learn that Creon had probably many others like him in Thebes considered women inferior to men, and these women had no voting rights at all. Ancient Greece continued to regard women as inferior citizens even at the time of Aristotle, who lived in Athens 100-odd years after Sophocles. In this great philosopher's view, master-slave relationship was a principle of necessity, which extended to all mankind. He thought so because he justified inflexible hierarchy in terms of the bivalent logic that informed his philosophical thinking as a whole. Had he lived in a pre-state Tinai society, he would have probably conceded that such a hierarchy was after all created by humans at a particular point of time in human history. In real life, masterhood and slavehood are roles people assume due to the situations in which they find themselves. Even the Indian caste system is not a social principle of necessity. It is only a social arrangement enforced by those who had the power to do so. In fact, with people's consensus, such arrangements can either be abandoned or replaced with more egalitarian ones, and only such a belief justifies the efforts of Jyotibai Phule, Ivera Periyar, and Ambedkar and others, who sought to annihilate the homoarchic Indian social system itself. The disharmonious and enslaving interrelationship among humans and other beings has led to a greater disruption of the communitarian bond with the emergence of industrialism in the 18th century, which was ultimately landed us in the epoch of what scientists call the Anthropocene. This epoch is a time of crisis. It is not so much a crisis of the ecological as the ethical. Humans have never been so unethical since their emergence on this planet. True, from the time they created the state society some 10,000 years ago, they have been shamelessly disrupting the communitarian bond by unduly dominating both humans and other beings. But undue dominance since the Industrial Revolution has been appalling and absurd because humans continue to dominate unduly despite evidences of their miserable failure, I should say. The pandemic of 2019, attributed mainly to the destruction of the habitat of wild creatures, is clear evidence for failure of human dominance over beings other than humans. Due dominance is integrated into heterarchy, but undue dominance is not. Undue dominance tends to be homoarchy, which is the basic structure of the state. Even when the prohibition or command of a state is apparently ethical, the unethicality of the state, namely its inflexibly dominant structure, which lies hidden rather than obvious, renders the seemingly ethical ban unethical. Take, for example, the ban on untouchability. On the face of it, it seems to be an ethical gesture on the part of the state. But the avoidance of the ban on the caste system, to which untouchability is inherent, invalidates the ban on untouchability. Both the pre-state tradition and our own ethical sense that makes us uncomfortable in an ethical state prompt us to appeal to our sense of shame to withdraw from things that disrupt the communitarian bond. Morally sensitive people do try to withdraw themselves from the unethical actions validated and even mandated by the state. This is exactly what Antigone tried to do. Industrialism thrives on inflexible dominance of beings other than humans, especially Mother Earth, Nilamagal of the Tamil people, and Gaia of the Greeks. Special bans such as ban on plastic, stringent anti-pollution rules, and other such, on the face of it, seem to be positive efforts. But industrialization has already caused the Anthropocene, and it has already ousted the pre-state familial Tinei life way. Unduly dominating human life today, it presents itself in different forms as economic development, corporations, global industries, and mega technologies. As the dominant power, the industrialist state compels us to be consumerist rather than limit our wants, to be self-centered rather than selfless, homogenize rather than respect necessary difference, and treat other humans and beings other than humans as our competitors rather than family. If we do not fall in line or adapt, as Joseph Meeker would say, it threatens to desacralize ancestral mountains, convert our sacred groves into built-up areas, pasture land into human settlements, forest land into industrial zone, and turn us into robots, which may not need happiness, love, and justice at all. Then ultimate values and ethicalness will only be empty verbal signs, as they are to the modernist unknown citizen W.H. Auden imagined in his eponymous verse. Arguably, both the state and the industrialized state were possible only by suppressing the moral instinct, which tends to persuade the agent to withdraw from evil. Put differently, structurally, both the state and the industrialized state are innately unethical. If so, how can one be ethical in them? How do the classics such as Tolkappiyam, Antigone, and Tirukkural grapple with this question? Let me recall the story of Antigone. In Theban mythology, Oedipus was a ruler of the city-state, Thebes, in ancient Greece. Oedipus married his own mother, Jocasta, and they had 4 children: Antigone, Ismene, Polynices, and Eteocles. When he realized that he was guilty of patricide and incest, Oedipus blinded himself and left Thebes a broken man. His son Polynices and Eteocles had agreed to rule Thebes, taking turns. But when it was Polynices' turn, Eteocles refused to step down. Enraged, Polynices invaded Thebes with the help of 6 other rulers. But in the battle, both brothers were killed. The story of Sophocles' Antigone begins at the point where Creon, Jocasta's brother, had crowned himself king and proclaimed an edict which allowed Eteocles an honorable burial and disallowed any burial for his brother because the latter fought against Thebes and therefore was to be considered a traitor. Anyone who attempted to bury such a traitor's body or perform any last rites for him was threatened with death by stoning. In order to fulfill her duty to her dead brother, Antigone sought the help of her twin sister, Ismene, who chose not to defy the state edict, as her womanhood required her to submit to manly rule. Refusing to submit to unjust power, Antigone was determined to go it alone. When Creon learned that Antigone had performed the last rites for her brother, he sentenced both sisters to death. Creon's son, Haemon, betrothed to Antigone, attempted to plead for Antigone's release with no avail. He did not fail to convey to his father that the whole city was pitying Antigone's plight. After Haemon left, Creon released Ismene. The prophet Tiresias also tried to impress upon Creon that the dead had to be honored. He also tried to dissuade the despot, Creon, from unjustly punishing Antigone, but without any success. Only when the chorus of elders reprimanded Creon did he relent and admit his folly. But that was too late. By the time he ordered the release of Antigone, she had already taken her life herself, and so had Haemon and Creon's wife, Eurydice. Devastated, Creon admitted, "All things are crooked that I handle." Now that's a short prose version of Antigone. Etymologically, the name Antigone means in place of mother, from the Greek word anti, which means in place of, and the Greek word gone, which means womb, both yielding the meaning a mother-like person. She buried her brother like how a mother would have, didn't she? Sophocles does not mention the age of either Antigone or her twin sister, but writers are of the opinion that Antigone might have been about 15 years of age in the plot of the play. In early Tamil society, a girl of 15 would have been named Madande, a Tamil word which literally means a female who feigns ignorance. In the plot of this play, we see in Antigone evidences of other feminine traits, but not any of feigned ignorance. Though she is only a teenager in the plot, she epitomizes such qualities as chemmai, meaning uprightness, viram, meaning courage, katpu, meaning resoluteness, and nan, meaning withdrawal from evil. Her chemmai is seen when she admits that she had buried her dead brother despite state prohibition. Her viram, or courage, steeled her to carry out the task of burying her brother, even without support from her own sister. And it's also seen in public admission of what she had done to Creon. When her sister asked Antigone to be silent about her plan to bury her brother, the latter asked her sister to do the contrary. She refused to be silent. When she takes a stand on an issue, she is resolute, a quality early Tamil people called katpu. Thiruvalluvar defined it as katpenum tinmai, which means firmness, called katpu. Valluvar was also able to make this couplet by delving into the etymological meaning of the word katpu. The word katpu derives from the base kal, which means stone or rock. Katpu is stoniness or rockiness, which is the quality of firmness or resoluteness. And the Tamil word for firmness or resoluteness is thinmai. So that's why he said katpenam thinmai. Resoluteness is a quality of a woman, usually a married one. But we see this trait in a teenager who is only betrothed and not yet married. Antigone's Katpu compares with Kannagi's, and such Katpu is metaphorized as Vadamin, or the northern star, or the pole star, whose fixed position in the sky helped ocean goers orient their direction of the journey properly. This star was also anthropomorphized as Arundhati, a woman who was also personified as Katpu. In this talk, I want to focus not on the qualities I've described already, but on her sense of shame, her non. According to David Constant, a professor of classics in New York University, shame was to the ancient Greeks, I quote, fundamental to ethical behavior, I end quote. Two Greek words are usually translated into English as shame, eidos and hiskune. The standard Greek English lexicon defines eidos as reverence, awe, respect, and a sense of honor. Hiskune is defined as shame, dishonor, as well as a sense of shame and honor. Summing up Aristotle's understanding of these two terms, Constant writes, I quote him, eidos is clearly understood to inhibit bad behavior, while hiskone reflects back on it with regret, I end quote. In his 2003 essay, Shame in Self and Society, Thomas Sheff, an American sociology professor, declared that, I quote, in this article, I specifically nominate shame as the premier social emotion. Shame might be considered the master emotion because it has more functions than other emotions, I end quote. Describing shame as the moral gyroscope, Sheff defined shame as the bond effect, borrowing the idea from Joan Medgay, a social anthropologist from New Zealand, who studied wakama, a very important Maori cultural aspect. We are also told that it is hard to find an English equivalent for the Maori word wakama, and the English words shyness, shame, and withdrawal convey only part of the meaning of the Maori word wakama. But Sheff assures us that the English term bond affect is an exact equivalent, according to him. Bond affect meaning the feeling which bonds. Sheff clarifies that shame as bond affect is an emotional indicator of any disruption in our social bond. To him, it is not a single emotion, but I quote, a large family of emotions, notably embarrassment, guilt, humiliation, and related feelings such as shyness that originate in threats to the social bond, I end quote. In his 1997 book, he pointed out that, I quote, over the last 200 years in the history of modern societies, shame virtually disappeared, I end quote. I would like to rename this phenomenon of disappearance of shame as shame denialism. You may remember the phrase COVID denialism in the recent years. Why have we denied shame in the last 200 years? Why is it necessary to revive our sense of shame? Before we answer these questions, let me dwell a little bit on its Tamil equivalent. The Tamil Tinai people call shame nan. Like its Maori counterpart wakama, one of the meanings of nan is withdrawal, because nan is also the string of the bow, as it is that part of the bow that can be drawn back in order to shoot the arrow or produce a sound. Now, what does this act of drawing back have to do with an emotion? Nan presupposes that the agent or tanmai stands in a primordial interrelationship with members of its community called Tinai, of which the supernatural beings, especially the ancestral beings, are also a part. The primordial interrelationship is anbu or love, based on the ultimate values inbam, meaning happiness, porul, substantiality, and aram, ethicalness. They are ultimate because they are beyond any agent's control or manipulation. They are not so much voluntarily attainable as experienceable, as consequences of actions. Without this primordial interrelationship, non cannot be understood properly. Normal life in the community is possible only when this primordial interrelationship with other beings, including the supernatural ones, is intact. Anything that stresses this interrelationship or disrupts it makes the agent uneasy, resulting in her or his withdrawal from this interrelationship. Withdrawal does not mean separation. It's a kind of stepping back in order to take stock of what's happening so that one can do the right thing and avoid messing up the interrelationship. Often, non is not necessarily the action of withdrawal as the sensibility which makes such withdrawal possible. The actual withdrawal ought to complement the sensibility necessary for withdrawal. When non is the sense which prompts the withdrawal, the actual withdrawal is the ethical action that follows it. Withdrawal from the primordial bond is one's response to the impact of something strange that is likely to offend the members of the community. The emotion of shame or non, which the agent experiences, is only one part of the whole impact on the communitarian bond. Non includes not only the agent's shame, but also the way the stress or disruption impacts the other members of the community, as well as their response to the stress or disruption, and the agent's response to others' responses. In Tine, or the primordial community, there is no individual. The agent has no independent existence apart from her interrelationship with the other members of the community. Therefore, non is no small matter. It could even cost a member her life. On certain occasions, one may find oneself in a situation wherein one has to choose between non and survival. In Tine, one is expected to choose invariably non, not survival. This is why Tolkappiyam quoted the saying of the ancients, which went, Virinum chirandandru nane, naninum cheirdir katchi katpu chirandandru, which translated will go, non is greater than survival, even greater than non is being steadfast in one's philosophical vision. Or that's incidentally my translation. Thiruvalluvar seconded Tolkappiyar when he ruled, I quote, for the sake of non will perish those that have cultivated it and do not lose it for the sake of survival, I end quote. That too is my translation. The precedence of non over survival does not mean precedence of self-importance or conceit over loss of self-importance or wounded pride. The uncompromisability of non is due to its orientation to the ultimate values. One shies away from something that tends to deviate from the ultimate values. Deviation from ultimate good or uprightness or justice hurts one endowed with a high degree of non. We may recall the story of Pandian Nedinjaliyan, who gave up his life the moment he realized that he had unjustly killed Kovalam. When he had to choose between non and survival, Nedinjaliyan chose non. It was not wounded pride that killed him. If it were, he would not have admitted that he was, after all, a thief, not a king. A thief because he stole Kovalan's life from Kovalan himself, and Kannagi's husband from her, which was not worthy of a king. If he had died due to threatened ego, he would have tried to defend his wrong judgment. He could admit his guilt because he was endowed with a high degree of non, the kind Valluvar talked about in his couplet. Non will be shattered were it not anchored in the ultimate values embodied by such eternal noble beings as Devam or the ancestors. These values lost their force when undue dominance among the members of the community disrupted the harmony of the community. As the state emerged by virtue of undue dominance on the part of a single monarch and the subordination of the heads of several clans, communitarian harmony was jeopardized. What brought together the members of the polis was not love, as in familial bonding and ultimate values, but customary law. If non is a gyroscope that measures communitarian harmony, then the sense of non is likely to be weak and dull in a state society. The state deity and abstract values were not as compelling as the supernatural members of the Tine family. In an industrialized society where the supernatural is suspect, the ultimate values are replaced with scientific rationalistic goals such as efficiency, precision, and provability. When there are no ultimate values, there is nothing to embarrass an offender. So much so, non itself becomes irrelevant. And this is the reason why Chef pointed out that it has disappeared totally from the industrialized state in the last 200 odd years. In the industrialized state, corruption could be a crime for legal reasons because an officer takes money he is not supposed to. Taking more is unacceptable, inappropriate, and probably not customary. But it's not considered crime because it breaches ultimate values. Though Creon's Thebes was not an industrialist one, it was already one that had dismissed the authority of the supernatural, not unlike our modern society. In such a society, Antigone's burial, which was a holy deed to her, was to the state a crime. It was a crime not because it transgressed superhuman law, but because it challenged human law. It's in such a human-centered polis, it's quite ironic that Creon viewed corruption from a supernatural perspective. When he learned that someone had gone ahead and buried Polynices, he suspected security lapse and attributed it to corruption. He said, I quote, "Full certainly I know that they with bribes have on these men prevailed to do this deed." I end quote. But the strangest thing is the way he regarded corruption. He continued, I quote, "Of all the evils current in this world, most mischievous is gold. This hath laid waste fair cities and unpeopled homes of men. Many an honest heart hath the false lure of gold seduced to walk in ways of shame. And hence mankind are versed in villainies, and of all godless acts have learnt the Lord." I end quote. It's quite ironical that a man who would later dismiss Haemon's appeal to exonerate Antigone by dismissing supernatural authority's self, saying, "To revere the dead is fruitless toil," accused the sentinels of graft and described their deed as a godless one and found them guilty of walking in the ways of shame. It's ironic because he invoked the gods he had dismissed when he rejected reverence for the dead and appealed to the value of supernatural-based shame or none he had traded for rationality-based obedience to state law. In fact, Antigone chose to disobey the state edict because it conflicted with her non, which demanded reverence for the dead. If there were a bureau for documenting democracy perception index, Thebes under Creon would have scored very low, not merely because Creon speaks about slaves and women like Antigone could not vote, because the people perceived Creon's rule as nothing short of misrule. This is why Haemon told his father, who believed that the city belonged to the king, I quote, "A city is none than to one man belongs." That's what Haemon said. Later, when the chorus tries to talk sense into Creon, he retrospectively views his autocracy, his irreverent attitude to the dead, and the cruelty meted out to Antigone as folly rather than as lack of non. Evidently, Creon, until the moment of recognition, did not show any evidence of possessing non. It's a trait found only in ethically sensitive people because it's possible to be ethically insensitive and indifferent. This quality shines distinctly in Antigone, so much so I'm tempted to vote her the paragon of non, whereas it's not as pronounced in her sister. Therefore, the latter is able to find excuses to avoid joining hands with Antigone in her fateful project of burying their dead brother. In Ismene, the instinct for survival, which Mika would call adaptation, overrides non. An ethically sensitive agent not only fears doing wrong herself, but also fears for others when they err or when they are likely to. When I use the words evil and wrong, I'm actually trying to find English equivalents for the Tamil word pari. To Antigone, pari is not the consequence of performing the action of she is contemplating, namely burying the brother, but of not performing it. In her case, pari will be an instance of omission rather than commission. To Creon, burying Polynices could be pari, but to Antigone, not burying him is. Creon had wronged a right. Burying ought to be right. It is right not only to all the people of Thebes, present and past, it is to Tiresias, to Haemon, and also to the gods. But Creon made it appear wrong, though later he realized that it was he who was wrong, not Antigone. His shallow nationalism enabled him to brand Polynices a traitor and project the latter's burial as Pari. As the incidents that led to the death of Antigone's brothers are not narrated in the play, we have no way of knowing whether Polynices was really a traitor as Creon represents him. Probably he is not. If we go by the version of the story that says that when it was Polynices' turn to rule, his brother refused to step down, and that is what forced Polynices to gather an army and challenge his brother. If that's the case, Polynices was not invading Thebes and trying to destroy his own country, but was only trying to get justice due to him. And the only way to open, only way open to him, in his opinion, was to fight his brother, which involved, unfortunately, unavoidable destruction. It was very easy for Creon to brand Polynices a traitor by scripting his own history of the conflict between the brothers and their death, especially when both of them were not alive to challenge him. It was easy for Creon to depict Polynices as one who was guilty of the pari of treason and devoid of none, and as one who was devoid of none or shame. To Valluvar, none is an intrinsic part of one's being. It is this trait that prompts us to make choices in life. Puppets do not have to choose because the puppeteer chooses the moves for them. No living thing is a puppet. It has to choose its moves, and the radar for choice is none. Choice becomes most difficult when one has to choose between life and death, as in the case of Antigone. The idea of choice between survival and none clearly militates against the comfortable concept of adaptation. None requires us to separate one choice from another by drawing a boundary around it. Thus, we need to separate pari from nanmai or good and choose one and not the other, whereas Joseph Meeker's idea of adaptation undervalues just such choice. Meeker seems to think that life forms accommodate everything that comes along their way without bothering to choose good and avoid evil. In Meeker's view, while comic personae adapted to their environments, tragic heroes did not. If so, can we say that Antigone is a tragic heroine because she could not adapt herself to her society? Her only problem, as she is presented in the plot, is the state order which banned burying her brother. Were she to adapt to her society, she would have to obey the state order. But will disobeying an autocratic edict amount to an adaptability? Will any form of legitimate social protest be considered an adaptability? If so, all social protests against autocracy were examples of an adaptability. Were it the case, necessary political revolution and social transformation will also be instances of unadaptability. Such an understanding of adaptability will lead us to conclude that collusion, conspiracy, connivance, and machination will all be various forms of adaptation, which may be acceptable to Chanakya and Machiavelli, but certainly not to Tolgapiyar and Thiruvalluvar, and also the pre-state Thebes from which Antigone's sense of none probably originated. At this juncture, it will be helpful to consider the idea of adaptation. It is, I quote, the adjustment of organisms to their environment in order to improve their chances at survival in that environment, I end quote. The first type is biological adaptation, as in the case of humans, such as the Tibetans, adapting themselves to higher altitude habitats, where there is less oxygen than the required level. Normally, a human needs, say, 95 to 100%. At a higher altitude, only about 60% is available. So a human is likely to struggle to breathe at that height. Now, adaptation means learning to survive with only 60% oxygen level. The cells of the body learn to do their normal functions at this low level. Adaptation in this case is the adjustment of a human body in order to continue to live. If continuing to live is a worthy end, the body adapts for the sake of attaining that end. Such adaptation is positively teleological, in my opinion. The second type of adaptation is behavioral, which involves modifying behavior to cope with difficult environment, as in the case of emperor penguins in Antarctica that crowd together in order to share their warmth in the middle of the winter season. As in the earlier case, here also adaptation serves a purpose and therefore positively teleological. If biological adaptation is involuntary, the behavioral type is voluntary. But in both cases, adaptation is positively teleological. Put differently, whether adaptation is voluntary or involuntary, it is not value neutral, but value oriented. Does adaptation apply to the situation of Antigone? If she were to accept a prohibition that shames her, will it be for her betterment or for anyone else or for both? Adaptation on the part of Antigone will amount to acceptance of unjust prohibition. If Tibetan had to cope with reduced level of oxygen, Antigone had to with unjust prohibition. These two challenges are not the same. Coping with low level of oxygen is positively teleological change, whereas accepting unjust prohibition is not such one. Or take the case of the penguins crowding together to share warmth. Collaboration in this case is teleologically justifiable. So if we need to use the concept of adaptation in interhuman contexts, we need to apply it only in teleologically justifiable contexts, not in the context of Antigone, which is not such. To Joseph Meeker, adaptation is strategic efficiency. He leaves out teleology completely. But I have tried to show how natural adaptation is also teleologically oriented. Cultural adaptation seems to be connected with appropriateness. Consider the problem of behaving appropriately. The hero's or heroine's behavior is supposed to be appropriate to his or her position. This position includes gender too. A female protagonist like Antigone may be courageous, but she still will not qualify as a heroine due to her gender, because courage is a quality appropriate only to a male in Antigone's Greek world. The Greek word for courage, interestingly, is andreia, which etymologically means manly. So when a woman displays a quality conventionally associated with a man, her behavior is inappropriate to her role, and this mismatch disqualifies her title to heroinehood. Can we say that a male quality like courage makes Antigone unadaptable to her own society? While Antigone did not choose to adapt to the demands of the dictatorial state of Creon, her sister chose to. I might say that Antigone chose not to adapt because she was not prepared to compromise her non, quite unlike her sister. Her sense of non requires Antigone to restore the stress and disruption Creon's edict had caused to the communitarian bond that tied Antigone, her family, her dead brothers, her ancestors, and also the polis where she lived. In order to do so, Antigone had to challenge Creon because he was the most forbidding threat to her non. He tried to rob her of her power to retain her non. Listen to her opening words in the play. I quote, "Dear, dear Ismene, my poor dear darling sister, do you think Zeus has any more disasters to fall upon our lives as punishment for our father's sins? So far, we have felt the weight of sadness, of destruction, of disgrace, and even of dishonor. Now, our king has stunned the whole city with this new law of his. Do you understand what it really means? Do you know what shame this new law will bring upon our brothers?" I end quote. She says, I quote, "Creon has decreed that the one may be buried with all the honors, while the other is not to be buried at all, but instead he is to be shamed." So that's how things stand at the moment, my dear sister Ismene. And now you may show the true worth of your birth. Are you worthy of it, Ismene? Or will you shame your house, Ismene, the house of Oedipus, our father? I end quote. When Ismene speaks of her father Oedipus, she tells Antigone, I quote, "Think how hated our father was when he died. How full of shame he was," I end quote. The repeated use of shame in this opening conversation of the play makes it quite clear that Antigone sees the despotic law of Creon as a threat to her non, the moral value jeopardized by her uncle's edict. Antigone sees the edict which forbids the burial of her brother as betrayal, probably a crime, because the state has prohibited burial, but yet it will be a sacred, blessed crime to Antigone. The deed Antigone is contemplating is paradoxical because it's seen from two perspectives. From that of the state, it's a crime. From that of the other world, it's a sacred and blessed one. It's considered crime only by Creon and probably by her own twin sister. Sophocles presents Antigone as a persona who privileges none over her own life, and a sister as one who privileges her life over none. This is because Antigone believed that life in this world has to be seen and valued in terms of life in the other. Mark her words, I quote, "My death will be sweet once I bury him, because I will be lying next to him in the underworld, having committed sacred, blessed crime," I end quote. The none of the Oedipus house, says Antigone, can be retained only if due honors are paid to the dead. But to her sister, life in this world is of immediate concern. She does not see her Tinai or family the way her sister does. Obviously, to her sister, the Oedipus house has already lost its none through the deeds done by her father and mother. Unlike Antigone, Creon did not endorse the view that anyone endowed with none would revere the dead. His edict is proof enough. It is based on the assumption that to revere the dead is fruitless toil. To him, Antigone wants to revere the dead because she has yielded to the dictates of emotion rather than to reason. To Creon, his own edict is a rational one because he's only punishing a traitor, and you can punish a dead man only by not burying him. But Creon's action does not seem to be rational to Haman. He says, I quote, "In the mind of man, noblest of all their gifts, the gods implant. How to find thy reasoning at fault, I know not, and to learn about, I should be loth," I end quote. With the help of God-given reason, Haman could assert boldly before an irate father, I quote, "Should not her deed be blazoned in gold?" I end quote. It is this reason which showed the Thebans that Antigone was right in burying her brother and Creon was wrong proscribing it. And that's why they all whispered in the dark and lamented the plight of Antigone. It is this reason which emboldened Tiresias to challenge Creon and tell him point blank, "Give death his due." It's not difficult to see how the understanding of reason had been undergoing a change in the ancient Greek society. As Haman points out, reason, a gift from the gods, is a faculty which connects humans and the gods. It's a sacro-human faculty which enables Antigone and Haman to justify reverence for the dead. But Creon is able to say that revering the dead is fruitless toil because he does not see reason as a sacro-human faculty anymore. To him, it's a wholly human faculty divested of its supernatural mooring. Creon was not alone in his new interpretation of reason. Already other ancient Greeks had begun to desacralize reason, demythologize, and find natural explanation for everything. Interestingly, Sophocles, the creator of the persona Creon, seems to have nursed rationalist leanings himself. Despite his rationalism, Sophocles did not prevent Antigone and Haman from understanding reason as a sacro-human faculty. Antigone's reason provided her knowledge of the heavenly law, which required her to bury her dead brother, and also of the consequence of disobeying it, namely pari or guilt that ensues from having committed a grave offense. Antigone's sister was also endowed with the same reason, and she too knew about the heavenly law and the consequence of not obeying it, but still she went ahead and chose to disobey the heavenly law and obey the state law for two reasons: to escape death sentence and to conform to patriarchal expectations about implicit obedience on the part of women. Antigone did not choose her sister's option because the power of the former's sense of shame made her recoil at the prospect of pari ensuing from disobedience of the heavenly law. Antigone's constant reference to heaven, the eternal and the dead, is one indicator that shows how her reference world was a supernatural one. If so, what kind was it? Was she guided by the mythological world? True, the play is set in the mythological Thebes, ruled by the mythic hero Oedipus and his successors. Anyone familiar with ancient Greek mythology knows that the gods intervened in the life of the humans in many ways. Though they did, humans could not look up to the gods for moral guidance. This raises a major problem. If so, what is the basis of the ethics of Antigone? especially her idea of non. If non is not a value derivable from mythology, which is often ethically neutral and even compromising, what could be the source of the ethically uncompromising principles such as non? I would speculate that it could have originated from the pre-state tribal or Tine societies of ancient Greece. In pre-state Tine, love was the fundamental value that shaped the other ultimate values I mentioned earlier. The cradle and crucible of love is the home which nourished the ultimate values. It did because the omniscient Devam, or the ancestral spirit, the most revered family member, was always watching over the actions of the living members of the family. In such a context, it was not customary law, but murai, meaning commonly shared understanding of eternal communitarian bond, and varakku, meaning conventions endorsed by noble elders, which governed the behavior of people. In the state society, murai was reinterpreted as customary state law, tempered by a social sense of justice. Such a semantic move was necessitated by the uprooted families with varied traditions trying to form a socially cohesive unit called the state. The type of state determined the type of customary law. While customary law in the Indian state societies was caste-based, it was class-based in ancient Greek city-states like Thebes. The male citizens, semi-free laborers, women, children, slaves, and foreigners who stood in an inflexible hierarchical relationship were governed by customary law until the emergence of the written law. But in the play under discussion here, Antigone had to deal not even with customary law, but the law of a single individual autocrat, Creon. On Creon's statement, that chorus comment, quite ironically, I quote, "What so pleases thee, the same is law, both for our Theban dead and for us who live," I end quote. This is challenged by Haman, obviously. Law is never made by one person because that's not in conformity with murai, which govern the lives of the people for whom the law is made. To Antigone, being ethical is safeguarding and conserving murai at any cost, even when a power greater than yours, such as the state, tries to prevent you from being ethical. Being ethical is conserving the communitarian bond, especially when its integrity is threatened by an unethical state edict like that of Creon's. If this communitarian bond is murai, the instinct that helps conserve it and the sense which tells us in what state it is, whether it is intact or stressed or disrupted, that sense is non. The kind of communitarian bond Antigone enjoyed with her dead brother is much more than kinship. It was what I shall call kind of sense of ontic continuity, which could not be disrupted by any power in this world, including that of Creon's. Creon dared to disrupt Antigone's communitarian bond with the dead, and thus commit a heinous pari, or crime, because he lacked non, though he invoked it when he accused the sentinels of graft. As Creon does not refrain from pari, which consists in rejection of non, of punishing a dead person, he lacks non. Pari is an effect caused by a shameful deed. It can be contrasted with tavaru. Tavaru is a mistake one commits, and its horizon does not exceed the agent who commits it. But pari is wrongdoing, a sin, whose horizon ends beyond the acting area of the agent. It extends into the supernatural realm, which is beyond reason and comprehensibility. Therefore, pari causes dread. Tavaru does not. It only makes the offender feel bad or regret for the commission. Because pari is committed by Creon, can Antigone be quiet about it, saying that she is not the offender, only Creon is? According to Thiruvalluvar, those who have non will fear not only their own pari, but also those of others. It is necessary to dread others' pari, especially when it implicates oneself. Antigone is implicated in Creon's autocratic and heinous prohibition because it concerns her own brother. So if she chooses to ignore the prohibition or justify inaction in the manner her sister does, by taking cover under such limitations as gender and subjecthood, Antigone will still be a perpetrator of pari, not by commission, but by omission. If the question we pose to Antigone is, how should one be ethical in an unethical state, and listen carefully to the answer, this is probably what she might say. Anyone with a sense of non will challenge pari because it disrupts the communitarian bond. If this is too brief an answer, the play could give us a vritti vidai, which is a detailed answer, which might be the following. By exercising his undue dominant power, Creon creates a situation where, shall I say, a subaltern subject like Antigone is not able to continue to enjoy her communitarian bond with both the living and the dead. Her relationship with her sister gets strained. She's forced to forego married life, and worst of all, disallowed to pay her respects to her dead brother. If we need to know how all this is relevant today, Antigone might cite the case of Vedanta-Konde conflict in Odisha and tie up the play with our own lives in the following manner. Aren't there autocratic superpowers today? Don't the advanced countries continue to promote negative development, which prevents ordinary subaltern people like Antigone from continuing to enjoy their communitarian bond with humans and beings other than humans? Consider the case of mining, one of the forms of negative development, by Creon like Vedanta in Odisha. Doesn't this corporate autocrat prevent Antigone like Dongriya Konde from continuing to look upon the bauxite-rich mountain Niyamagiri as her sacred ancestor? Joseph Meeker might say that in order to maintain the social equilibrium, Antigone Konde should not stand up against Creon Vedanta for any ethical principle like reverence for the ancestor, but adapt strategically by accepting mining of their ancestral mountain as infinite play. If we are happy with what Antigone tells us, we might resolve to be ethical rather than remain ethically neutral, or adapt to unethicalness when compelled by an unethical state in order to end the Anthropocene. Then it might dawn upon us that to be ethical is to repossess Nan, a sensibility that was compromised in order to lose Tinai and gain statehood and industrialized statehood. The final question is this: are we ready to take up the challenge Antigone poses to us, to repossess the blunted moral instinct Nan and challenge the unethical in all its forms? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your mind-boggling and astonishing presentation, sir. We appreciate having this mysterious area clarified. Your presentation definitely manifests way for future researchers. Thank you once again, sir. Dear friends, now let's break for lunch. We have arranged the lunch behind the auditorium. Our student volunteers will take you to the lunch venue. Again, we'll reassemble sharp at 2:10. Am I right, Ajanta? Okay. Thank you.